Ottawa's own industry may have just shifted the fighter race, pushing Gripen closer and pulling the F-35 off its pedestal. Canada's fighter jet debate just shifted again, and this time the momentum isn't coming from Washington, NORAD, or the Pentagon. It's coming from right inside Canada's own industrial engine room.
It's a $900 million announcement for defense innovation in Canada. The partnership with the National Research Council will help grow domestic drone and aerospace technology.
As Ottawa pushes forward with new aerospace investments, and as frustration grows over U.S. pressure tied to the F-35 program, a different question is rising to the surface. Has Canada already built the foundation for a fighter fleet that doesn't depend on America at all?
Military analyst Ken Hansen says the American F-35 doesn't fit the needs of the Canadian military, and the entire deal should be scrapped, even if that means facing a penalty for doing so.
Swedish defense firm Saab wants Canada to buy and build its fighter jets. The firm is pitching a partnership with Bombardier and promising to create up to 10,000 jobs along with it.
When you look closely at the emerging landscape, Bombardier's expanding role, Rolls-Royce Canada's engine capacity, NRC's technology labs, and Ottawa's emphasis on sovereign capability, it becomes clear that the real story isn't just about choosing a jet, it's about choosing who controls Canada's air power future. And in that environment, Gripen-E suddenly looks far less like an underdog and far more like the fighter that fits the country Canada is trying to become. The government's new $900 million investment package landed with all the subtlety of a depth charge. Announced at the National Research Council's Flight Research Hub, the package funds a drone innovation center, pushes quantum-safe systems forward, accelerates electronic warfare testing, and puts a brand-new Bombardier Global 6500 aircraft at the center of Canada's next phase of aerospace development. On its surface, this looks like a research and innovation announcement. New labs, new platforms, upgraded facilities. But listen carefully to the ministers leading this effort, and the picture becomes far sharper. They spoke repeatedly about sovereignty, economic security, open architecture, and the need to rebuild domestic capability after decades of relying on foreign suppliers. They emphasized that the next era of Canadian defense must be shaped by Canadian hands, with Canadian companies benefiting directly. At the same time, Defense Minister David McGuinty once again confirmed that the fighter jet review is still open. Industrial benefits remain central, sovereignty remains central, and managing the political volatility in Washington, especially under President Donald Trump, has become an unavoidable part of the calculus. Trump has been clear that he expects allies to fall in line with U.S. procurement, and his administration continues to use tariffs as a pressure tool. For Canada, that turns the F-35 debate into something much larger than a question of specifications. All of this is happening just as Swedish Gripen-E supporters highlight how closely their aircraft aligns with Canada's new industrial reality, and that's where the debate now takes a very different tone. Canada's evolving defense industrial strategy places domestic capability at the center of decision-making. The country wants to rebuild aerospace engineering, restore manufacturing depth, and create tens of thousands of high-skilled jobs tied directly to military procurement. This is not a minor shift. It represents a philosophical break from the previous model, where Canada bought American systems and accepted limited work share in return. Gripen-E fits the new model, the way a key fits a lock. Saab's open architecture, willingness to transfer technology, and readiness to integrate Canadian companies into the production chain align neatly with the government's stated objectives. The F-35 does not. Its intellectual property is tightly controlled, its maintenance pipeline is routed through U.S. hubs, and its upgrade ecosystem is off-limits to external partners. Choosing the F-35 means accepting dependency at the precise moment Ottawa is trying to escape it. That tension between Canada's new economic direction and America's expectations is now at the heart of the debate. Bombardier's resurgence is one of the most important yet least discussed elements of the fighter contest. The company will modify the new Global 6500 research aircraft for ISR and electronic warfare testing, and NRC will integrate systems inside a Canadian-controlled airframe. This is exactly the kind of work Gripen's design philosophy encourages. Saab already builds its globalized surveillance aircraft on a Bombardier platform. That matters. It means Canada's industrial capabilities already match a proven Swedish military ecosystem. It also means any future Gripen-centric fleet could be supported, upgraded, or modernized using facilities and knowledge Canada currently possesses. With Bombardier back in the defense conversation, Gripen gains a structural advantage the F-35 cannot match. A fighter is only as independent as its engine. Gripen-E uses the GE F414 power plant, an engine supported globally and open to licensed maintenance arrangements. Rolls-Royce Canada, with its deep history in military and commercial engine servicing, is perfectly positioned to anchor long-term sustainment contracts in Canada. That means decades of recurring revenue and technical expertise staying inside the country. Contrast that with the F-35. Its highly specialized Pratt & Whitney engine must be serviced through U.S.-controlled facilities, and every major component is tied to a closed ecosystem. If Canada buys the F-35, billions in sustainment spending will flow south. If Canada buys Gripen, a large portion of that money remains of home. In a political climate where Ottawa is trying to strengthen domestic industries while managing unpredictable tariff threats from Washington, that difference is not theoretical. It is strategic. The NRC's new research priorities: quantum-safe communication, electronic warfare testing, autonomous flight systems, Arctic platform design, create an innovation corridor that favors fighters with flexible architecture. Gripen was built for modular integration. Its software can be adjusted, its sensors swapped, its EW suite upgraded by partner nations. The F-35, by design, cannot be altered without permission from the United States. In a world where potential adversaries adapt faster and digital warfare evolves in months, not years, betting on a locked system imposes operational risk as well as political vulnerability. Canada is building a research ecosystem designed for adaptability. Gripen is built to adapt. The F-35 is built to be controlled. The more Ottawa invests in sovereignty, the more today's fighter jet debate becomes a test of national direction rather than engineering metrics. Gripen-E aligns with Canada's industrial renaissance, its political interests, and its desire for strategic breathing room as U.S. pressure escalates. The F-35 aligns with tradition, interoperability, and a long list of assumptions rooted in a world that no longer exists. And as Canada rebuilds the aerospace capacity it lost after the Avro Aero, another question now echoes through this entire discussion. If the country is finally reclaiming control of its defense industry, why would it purchase the one aircraft specifically designed to prevent that control? That is the real decision Ottawa must make, and it will define Canada's air power identity for the next generation.
The structure that we see for NORAD would have to be altered. We'd probably have to get more F-35s.
The United States would.
The United States would.
In order to
fully protect the continent.
With a review underway, the Swedish manufacturer of the Gripen jets is waiting in the wings.
I am wholeheartedly in favor of this. I have not been a proponent of the F-35 for Canada.
Canada is openly challenging the F-35 program, and Trump didn't see it coming. After weeks of pointed warnings from U.S. Ambassador Pete Hoekstra, Ottawa is now weighing Sweden's Gripen as a full alternative, a move that could blow apart a $19 billion F-35 deal, shake Washington's leverage, and pull NORAD into the center of a continental dispute. What Hoekstra framed as a simple requirement for interoperability has become something much bigger, Canada signaling that America no longer dictates its air defense choices. This is no routine procurement pause. It is a political and strategic break from decades of automatic alignment. Public opinion is shifting. Gripen's industrial package is gaining traction, and Hoekstra's pressure campaign has produced the opposite of what Washington intended. Canada is no longer acting like the subordinate partner in North American defense. It is behaving like a sovereign power prepared to make its own call. The dispute began with rising tension over Canada's slow pace in expanding its F-35 fleet. Ottawa has so far committed to 16 aircraft, but has not confirmed whether it will proceed with the full original plan. Washington, through Ambassador Pete Hoekstra, has insisted repeatedly that more F-35s are essential for continental defense, and that a move towards Sweden's Gripen would weaken interoperability. He has also warned that NORAD's structure might need to adjust if Canada chooses a different path, suggesting American jets would have to fly into Canadian airspace more often. These remarks landed in a country where public skepticism toward the F-35 is already strong. Polling late last year showed that most Canadians prefer an alternative, especially as Denmark acknowledged frequent repair issues and said it might not make the same choice again. Meanwhile, Sweden has put forward a compelling package for the Gripen, including domestic jobs, industrial participation, and the ability to maintain and modify aircraft on Canadian soil. Prime Minister Mark Carney, governing during a period of strained U.S.-Canada relations, now finds himself at a strategic turning point. The decision he makes will shape not just the Air Force, but the balance of power across the northern half of the continent.
Donald Trump entered his second term believing Canada would remain predictable, aligned, compliant, and firmly anchored to U.S. defense expectations. What he has encountered instead is a Canadian government increasingly willing to say no. The F-35 debate is exposing that shift in real time. Canada's hesitation is not a technical matter. It is a response to years of tariff threats, unpredictable policy swings, and a growing sense that Washington views alliances through a transactional lens. Carney's government has been signaling for months that Canada will not allow external pressure to dictate national strategy. Trump's comments and Hoekstra's warnings only deepen that resolve. When an ally suggests that buying a specific American jet is a requirement for a stable defense partnership, it becomes harder to accept the argument as one rooted purely in strategy. The political undertone is impossible to miss, and Canadians feel it.
The ambassador's remarks about NORAD being altered if Canada does not proceed with more F-35s created a wave of confusion. NORAD is not a menu item that one partner can revise at will. It is a binational framework built on geography, early warning capability, and shared command responsibilities. Canada's northern radar systems, future over-the-horizon installations, and vast Arctic territory are irreplaceable components. Without them, the United States loses critical reaction time in any continental threat scenario. That is why the idea that Canada could be sidelined or downgraded is more political pressure than operational reality. The F-35 is a valuable part of the NORAD modernization package, but NORAD is far more than one aircraft. Its continuity depends on stable cooperation, not a single procurement decision. If anything, the suggestion that the United States would need to fly into Canadian airspace more often only reveals how essential Canada's participation continues to be. The entry of the Gripen into Canada's debate is changing the tone of the entire conversation. Sweden's aircraft is not viewed as the global gold standard like the F-35, but it is respected for reliability, rapid turnaround, ease of maintenance, and adaptability in harsh climates. More importantly for Canada, Sweden is offering something the United States never does at scale: meaningful domestic production. This aligns directly with Carney's focus on industrial capacity and economic resilience. As Canada tries to rebuild its manufacturing base and increase sovereign control over defense assets, the Gripen presents advantages beyond the aircraft itself. The message is simple: a fighter jet is not just a weapon, it is an industrial strategy. In an age where supply chains can be weaponized, that matters more than ever. The fact that Denmark and other early adopters of the F-35 are voicing serious concerns about readiness and maintenance only gives Ottawa more room to maneuver. Canada would not be acting alone by reconsidering the program. It would be part of a broader reassessment happening across allied air forces. The political landscape inside Canada has shifted enough to give Carney significant breathing room. Trump's tariff threats against Canada over the past year have damaged trust. His warnings to Carney after the Prime Minister's global stability speech only widened the gap. And with allies in Europe embracing mixed fleet strategies rather than single-platform dependency, the idea of Canada choosing its own path is no longer radical. Carney is also leveraging Canada's deepening relationships in the Indo-Pacific. The new security and industrial agreements with South Korea, alongside interest from Japan and ASEAN economies, demonstrate that Canada is beginning to diversify away from the traditional U.S. axis. A move toward Gripen would fit naturally within that broader shift. The real story is not about aircraft performance or interoperability checklists. It is about control. Canada's geopolitical environment has changed, and so has its tolerance for dependence. After years of witnessing Washington use economic tools to pressure allies and seeing Trump tie security, trade, and political loyalty together, Ottawa is reassessing the foundations of its defense relationship with the United States. Choosing the Gripen would not break the alliance, but it would signal that Canada is willing to pursue a more autonomous defense posture. That shift is exactly what unsettles Washington. The United States is not used to Canada acting like an independent regional power, yet that is precisely what is happening.
Canada's resistance to Washington's F-35 expectations marks a turning point in North American defense politics. Trump believed the procurement was settled, the alliance was predictable, and the pressure would be enough to secure Ottawa's compliance. Instead, Canada has forced a reckoning over how NORAD functions, how allies cooperate, and how sovereignty is asserted in an era of great power uncertainty. The coming months will determine whether this becomes a full strategic pivot or a high-stakes bargaining phase. But one question now sits at the center of the continent's security future. If Canada no longer accepts that the F-35 is the price of being a good ally, what does the next chapter of North American defense look like? And is Washington prepared for a Canada that finally says no?